الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
So alhamdulillah, we are coming towards the end of Dhul Hijjah. The Islamic New Year should be coming soon, inshallah. The first month is the month of Muharram, which means the new Islamic year. And I was going to talk about something else actually that was on my mind. But yesterday, people don't know, a very significant person in the field of da'wah and scholarship passed away in the Western world, Muhammad al-Sharif. So Muhammad al-Sharif was from Canada, Egyptian ethnicity. Unfortunately, he was very young. Relatively, he passed away very suddenly in Dubai. He was only about 47. He was out with his children and he just collapsed. No previous illness, no history, nothing. So, in my circles of the students of knowledge, we're all in a bit of shock. This is somebody that we would maybe kind of know. I've known for a long time. So he is significant because he studied in Medina al-Munawwara in Medina University with another famous person, which you've probably heard of, Shaykh Amer Jamil. Same time, and when he came back to Canada, he started an institute called Al-Maghrib Institute. And he basically what he did was he went away from the normal teaching in mosques in a halaqah system to, you could say, modernize it, but to basically bring it up to a way in which it would be easily understandable for the next generation. So he was the first one to start teaching in universities using PowerPoint, giving them notes out, teaching in English, trying to make Islam relatable to them. And he started off in Canada and America, and it grew very quickly to become a global institute. And he was very into life coaching, positive thinking. You could say he was a visionary. And his latest project, that the last couple of years he's been teaching people, is dua, like the power of making dua and how to make the du'as more of a reality in your life. And like anyone who brings something new or tries to do something different, he got a lot of criticism in the early days from people. Because he was a relatively young man in his late 20s when he was doing these things, and people were not happy with the way he was doing it. But probably in about 10 years, everyone kind of moved on to start adopting what he was doing. So he was one of the first ones to use social media and realize that this is a way to reach the youth. So a lot of discussions today in WhatsApp and so on has been about him and people giving tributes to him, and obviously just the shock of him passing away so young. He just I think 5 hours before he passed away, he done a tweet. So he's always tweeting things, beneficial things for especially younger Muslims. And so obviously it's a reminder because all these students of knowledge are in a bit of shock because he's similar age to us. There's a shock element, obviously, something that we know that life is temporary, and in our own masjid and the short life of this organization, there have been people who have been part of it and no longer part of it. And tomorrow, the cycle of life is that we will all pass, and new people will come, and there are people here today in the last 6 months which weren't there in the beginning, and so forth. This is the circle of life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. So obviously it's a reminder that we can never be too complacent, and the way I think he lived his life was very much of trying to benefit people. And so what will benefit him now is what he has left behind, his teachings. And this is what I wanted to kind of talk about, which is the whole idea of da'wah. Da'wah actually is derived from the word dua. And dua, if you look at it from a language perspective, really means to call. When you say dua, it means to call somebody or call to something. So da'wah is calling. What are we calling to? We're calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the essence, if we broke it down, what is the simple idea of da'wah? It is calling people to God. That is literally what it is. It's calling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now you might think that's a very simple thing, but it's actually not. It's actually quite a difficult thing. And the reason why it's difficult is because obviously you have Iblis, you have Shaitan, you have also your nafs, your ego, which is said to be stronger than Iblis. And very often this is what something we were taught when we were taught the subject. Our teachers used to emphasize a lot was that you're calling people to Allah, right? You're calling people to Allah. You're not calling people to your organization. You're not calling people to your Shaykh. You're not calling people to your understanding of Islam or whatever it may be, because there's lots of things you could be calling people to. And it's very easy to call people to yourself, right? You're calling people to a talk, but in reality, you want people to come and listen to you. So you may think that you're calling to Allah, but if you look deep within yourself, you're actually calling people to yourself. You're looking for recognition, you're looking for praise, you're looking for status, you're looking for that, you're hoping that someone's going to say, Alhamdulillah, mashallah, that was a really good talk, right? If that's happening inside of you, then you have to really check yourself, because are you really calling to Allah, or are you calling to yourself? Are you really calling to Allah, or are you really calling to your mosque? There's certain mosques, and this is not just in Glasgow, but just generally, this is a human problem. They will not do a project unless it's there under their banner. If it's under their banner, no problem. If it's not under their banner, not interested. Now you tell me, is Islam just for your mosque, or is Islam for all of creation? One of our teachers said, if somebody became connected to Allah through you and never knew your teachers, never knew where you studied or whatever, it doesn't matter, because you're not calling them to your group, you're not calling them to your shaykh, you're calling them to God. And if they become closer to God, that's hasil maqsood, that's what's intended, that's what you want. So it's always important, whenever we do anything under the ban of da'wah, is to review why am I doing this? Who am I calling to? In other words, am I only going to help if I'm given a position? So there's an organization, right? We're organizing an event. We say, right, you're the treasurer, you're the whatever, right? If you're not given a position, will that decrease any of your efforts? So if you're going to give 100% effort, but because you weren't given that title, it's dropped to 90%, there's a problem. There's a problem there. It has to be 100%, whether you're given a title, whether you're not given a title, whether people give you thanks, whether people don't give you thanks, whether anyone even notices that you've done anything. Right? This is why we've got to be very careful, because when we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next life, right, we're told obviously our actions are going to get weighed. What you don't want, or what we don't want, is we think, I did Hajj every year, I did taught this many people, I did this many khutbahs, I did, gave this much sadaqah, I built this mosque, I done all this great work, but when we stand in front of God, everything's going to get exposed. If it was not 100% for God, God's going to say, no, actually, there was a bit of you in there. There was a bit of, you got happy when that person praised you. And when that person didn't mention your name, there was something inside you said, you didn't even mention me. Right? You're not being respectful. So, it's something for us to review, that we are going to pass to the next life, but we want to, whatever actions we've got, and we know they're deficient, but we want to work on them so that at least, inshallah, there's something there that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finds acceptable. And that's why the verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ادعو إلى سبيل ربك. Call to the path of your Rabb, your Lord. It's not called to your group. It's not called to your organization. It's called to Allah. How do you just get on a speaker and start shouting and raving like some people do? No. Bil hikmah, wisdom. Be wise, right? And wisdom doesn't mean to talk a lot. They actually say that if you're more silent, you're wiser. Why? Because if somebody talks all the time, their words lose value. If somebody's silent most of the time, you're in a gathering, somebody's silent, and they say, what's your opinion? Because the person's not spoken, everyone's going to listen. I wonder what this person's going to say. But if you've been talking for the last hour, nobody wants to listen to you. So you actually have more weight when you are silent, and you're actually more likely to come with something wise because you're thinking about it. وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ, right? And admonish or advise in a good way. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, and discuss with them in a better way. Discuss with them in a better way. If they're shouting, doesn't mean you shout back. You've got to be better. Look at the Prophet's seerah. How did people speak to him, and how did he speak to them? How did they behave with him, and how did he respond? You go into the news, and some countries are worse. These politicians, and they're all talking over each other. There's no respect for each other whatsoever. It's just about me. There's no respect. And this, because Muhammad Sharif spent his life doing da'wah in his way. We all make mistakes, we get things right, we get things wrong. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He accepts, whatever effort he made, and it's accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But da'wah is the actions, is the you could say job description of the prophets. So why were the prophets sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? To call people or connect people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we are engaging in that action, and it doesn't have to be a big speech, it could be just in the way you're behaving with your family, with your friends. That in itself is a great action. Why? Because this is the path of the prophets. This is the way of them, and this is what they were sent for. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. And is anyone better in speech than the one who calls to Allah and does good action? وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, and says, I am from the Muslims, or I am from those who submit. So in other words, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا. There is nothing better, nothing higher than calling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the best thing that we can do. And there is many rewards in this. The hadith says, whoever if you call to something good, you get the reward. Okay? And everyone who follows you will also get that reward. So you do a good action, right? You start a campaign. You start a campaign for, Burma, right? You start a campaign. No one knew about Burma, right? Everyone's ignorant about Burma. You're the first person to raise awareness that, listen, this is happening to Muslims in Burma. We need to raise money. We need to do this. We need to organize. You're the first person. Now, everyone, you get 5 people involved. You get 10 people involved. You have started this good action. You will get the reward of doing that. But every single person that follows you, you will get the reward of them doing it as well. I'll give you another example. You teach somebody a Fatiha, right? Somebody becomes a Muslim. Okay? Somebody became Muslim. And let's say Hamza Yusuf, somebody we know, Shaykh Hamza Yusuf becomes Muslim. Whoever taught him Al-Fatiha, right? Whoever taught him Al-Fatiha will get the reward of Shaykh Hamza Yusuf reading Al-Fatiha for the rest of his life. And how many people has he taught over the 40 years he's been Muslim? How many times has he mentioned Fatiha? He's actually got tafsir in Fatiha as well. You will get the reward of every single person who benefits from that Al-Fatiha. So you can achieve in da'wah what you can't achieve through your own worship. If you read Fatiha yourself 1,000,000 times, right? But if you taught 10 people Al-Fatiha, and they taught 10 people, and they taught 10 people, and they taught 10 people, what's it going to get to? 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, you will never be able to achieve what you can achieve through da'wah by yourself. Right? This is why da'wah is up there in terms of actions. And at the same time, there's a warning that if you do something wrong, you will get the sin, but you will get the sin of every single person who follows you in that action. Let's just say the first person to fraud, let's say fraud, right? There's a lot of fraud that goes on in online schemes and so on. Somebody starts a fraud, right? And other criminals catch on, that's a good idea, and they start doing it as well. The person who first started it is going to get the sin for doing it, and the sin of every single person who follows them. The first person to bring drugs into Glasgow, right, will have the sin of the people that took the drugs, and every single person who took drugs after that, because they are the first one to start it. So it goes both ways. If you do something good and people follow you, you get the reward. If you do something bad and people follow you, you will get their sin as well. Which is why they say that the two sons of Adam alayhi salam, Habil and Qabil, Qabil killed Habil. That every murder that happens on the earth, that Qabil will have a portion of that sin, because he's the first one to introduce murder on the earth. Right, so we have to be, and this is why the hadith is Man dalla ala khairin falahu mithlu ajri fa'ili. Whoever shows somebody a good action will get the same reward as them. You taught somebody, brother, you should, I don't know, read Surah Yasin for the deceased, right? Every time that person reads Yasin, you're going to get the reward as well. So this is why sharing good advice, ad-deen nasiha, Prophet said, the deen, the religion is good counsel. When you give advice to one another, when you teach somebody something good, when you show someone a better way, you will get the reward of doing that, and also every single time that person does it, and every single person that person passes it on to. Right? So da'wah is one of those things, and that's why the Prophet said, "Ballighu anni walau ayah." Even if you know one verse of Allah's book, then spread it, tell people about it. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept Muhammad al-Sharif. There's this 500 influential Muslims who publish it every year. This kind of thing about who are the influential Muslims in the world. He's been mentioned in that. So he's very significant in the Western da'wah field. And what he's done will live on, inshallah ta'ala. We ask Allah to accept his actions, and we also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us also take part in a simple way, whatever our level is, whatever way we can, even if it's just within our families, even if it's just within our friends, to be a person of da'wah, which is what? Calling people to Allah. And it doesn't mean giving people big lectures. It can be through your actions, it can be through simple things. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam taslim kathira. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Let's pray sunnah inshallah.